Hello and welcome. My name's Ben Hales with Transform My Poker, and today I'm tackling a difficult subject, playing from early position. It's one where I know a lot of you struggle because I see the databases, I see students' databases, and there's often mistakes being made playing from early position. So I'm aware of a lot of the difficulties that you may be having, whether you're aware of them or not. Okay, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. I'm going to give you some tips on how to improve your play and how to improve your win rate from early position. Okay, so I thought I'd start off today by just running through a few of the things that are true about playing in early position, and that should give us the background we need in order to make some adjustments. So first of all, there are lots of people sat behind you. If you're in early position pre-flop, that's the worst place on the table to be because you're acting first. Everybody acts after you pre-flop. Okay, post-flop, not the worst place. The blinds are the worst place, but pre-flop, it's the worst place to sit. And you've got to be aware of the problem of all these players who have got two active cards, and the probability that one of those players is simply dealt a good hand, which is my second point, is quite high. So there's lots of players involved, and there's a high likelihood that one of them is holding a big hand. So what does that automatically tell you? Well, we're going to come on to that in a minute, but yeah, be aware when you're playing in early position. Lots and lots of players still active in this hand. So the third point is that we're after the flop. If we get to the flop stage, we are likely to be playing poker out of position. So we're likely to have a sustained disadvantage through the duration of the hand. Not definitely. We might get called by the big blind. We may play in position post-flop. But there's a high likelihood we're going to be out of position because the majority of our opponents have relative position on us. And then the final point here is that our perceived range will be strong. So any player who is playing in early position, if you open from early position, the players behind you are going to think, oh, he's going to have a strong hand because he's playing in early position, right? So we can use that to our advantage, and we can use that to play aggressive poker and represent very, very strong hands. Okay, so what strategy should we use from early position? Well, first of all, we are going to have to choose a tight starting range. And exactly how tight that is will depend on the game type, the stack depths, exactly where you sat on the table, because early position covers under the gun +1, etc. So, it's a general term, therefore we can't give a specific range. But don't be afraid of really tight ranges. And one of the reasons why, I still recommend very tight ranges from early position is that there are all these players sat behind who could have a big hand. And hands like ace jack, ace queen are quite vulnerable. They look good, and you might be sat there waiting for a hand, and one comes along and it's okay. Ace 10 suited, looks pretty, but is it really going to yield a profit for you? And in some situations, the answer is going to be no, and you're going to need to put down some pretty strong hands. Don't be afraid of doing that. Don't be afraid of folding strong hands pre-flop when you're playing from early position. It's not a bad strategy. It may not be perfect strategy to play super tight, but it's a pretty reasonable strategy, okay? So don't be afraid of keeping things simple in early position. In later position, you're going to need to be more expansive. You're going to need to learn how to play hands that are not just the top hands. But in early position, there's really no need to be getting all creative with your starting hands. Stick to simple ones. The third point I think that we can use to our advantage is if we're going to play a tight range of value-based hands, then let's increase our raise size. And I don't see people doing this enough. I promise you, if you increase your raise size with your value hands, you will make more money. This is not just me guessing, this is statistically backed up fact. Raise sizes are not large enough in general from early position. You don't have to raise 5 times, 6 times on the button. You can have a different raise size from late position, but in early position I highly recommend large raise sizes, and don't be afraid of really large ones on tables where you're getting called, right? If you're getting everybody fold and respect you, then okay, you might need to stick to 3 or 4 times. But if you're getting called by every man and his dog and you're sat there with kings, why not go 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? Why not go all in if you're getting called, right? When you're holding really strong hands, large raise sizes simply make sense. Final point here, use your strong range throughout the hand. Now, this could mean a few different things, but it just as a general point, don't forget when you reach the flop or the turn, don't forget that you could be holding aces, kings, queens, jacks, tens, ace, king, and not a lot else in the minds of your opponent. So if you have arrived here and you don't have a particularly strong hand, or the flop hasn't helped you, don't forget that you may still have a huge range advantage over your opponent. And that can be just as important as actually having a big hand. All right. Next, let's look at some of the mistakes that people are making in early position so you can make sure you avoid them. First up, don't play too many hands. I can't stress this enough. It's the number one mistake that people make. Impatience, indiscipline, just lacking those simple things of just staying calm, folding, waiting for better spots to play poker. You do not need to go crazy in early position. Second mistake, and this is a common one again, don't limp into the pot from early position as a normal strategy. This should be a deviation from your normal strategy. If you're ever going to do it, then it should be for a specific reason. And that reason would normally be, I'm trying to trap somebody, I'm trying to make someone make a mistake. There are a couple of other reasons why you might choose a limping range. I'm not going to go into them now, but in general, remember this: raising makes money, limping, it might make money, but it won't make as much money as had you raised on average, okay? So limping too much is just generally a mistake. If you're going to get in there with a raise. Third mistake, and this is a totally different type of mistake, is arriving later in the hand, say the turn and the river card, with say a one pair hand. Maybe you've got pocket aces and an opponent has continued in the hand right through to the late stages. Why are they there? What's their range consist of? Perhaps we need to slow down. Maybe we can get 2 streets of value from our big overpair. Maybe we can get 3 streets. Sometimes that's true. But in general, you've got to be careful with one pair hands. You do not want to end up bleeding money. You may need to be prepared to fold to a raise. If an opponent makes a strong play, we may need to respect it. So overplaying one pair hands, like if you got ace king and you hit an ace on the flop, or over pairs king king on a queen high flop, overplaying these situations can be very, very dangerous. Of course you're betting for value, and of course you're getting through to the late stages of the hand. You need to be respectful of opponents and thinking about, well, why are they still here? And if they're raising late in the hand, well, have they got a set? And if you can escape from those situations, that can save you a huge amount of money and is a really big tip for how to improve your overall strategy in early position. Make sure you can recognize the difference between An opponent who's calling down with ace queen when you've got ace king and you're getting value from him, and also the times when I suspect he's got a set, I'm going to fold here, or at least not overplay my hand. Good. Final point on this slide, calling 3-bets instead of 4-bet or folding. And this is one of the adjustments that you could be making to your game. So one common mistake is if you've raised in early position and you get 3-bet behind you, is doing too much calling, especially out of position. So if, say, the button or cutoff or someone raises and you're going to be out of position post flop, then you should be reluctant to do too much calling. I'm not going to go through all the hands that you should be calling with or all the hands you should be 4-betting or folding, because it will vary depending on opponent's range, the size of his 3-bet, stack sizes, etc., etc. So there's lots of variables that will dictate which hands you're going to put in your calling range, your 4-bet range, your folding range. But in general, try to avoid doing too much calling of 3-bets. Don't be afraid of 4-betting. 4-betting can save you money. And also don't be afraid of folding, because folding can also save you lots of money. Okay, so just expanding on that point, dealing with aggression from behind, make sure you assess the opponent's range. Is this person 3-betting from the bottom 20% of his hands, or is he 3-betting 5% of his hands? There's a big difference in the way you're going to deal with that opponent dependent on what you think his range is. Widen your 4-bet range against opponents who are 3-betting really often, right? And there are lots of these days. There's lots of people 3-betting with wide ranges. Make sure you widen your 4-bet range. And if you are playing a few semi-bluff hands like ace-5 suited, ace-4 suited, these make good hands to 4-bet, especially if you're shoving all in at around 40 big blinds, 35 big blinds. If you think you can make your opponent fold because he's doing far too much 3-betting and he's going to fold his ace-jack, his ace-queen even, if you can make him fold that type of strength of hand, then having a couple of semi-bluff hands in your 4-bet range makes a lot of sense. Try not to do too much calling of 3-bets. In addition, one mistake that can happen when you come up against a 3-better is that you give it too much respect and you fold too often. I'd say this is the least important of the mistakes because it doesn't cost you that much money, whereas doing too much calling definitely costs lots of money. But you shouldn't want to fold too much if you're being 3-bet. If you find yourself folding too much to 3-bets, then you need to make a couple of adjustments. You need to consider playing fewer starting hands so that you've got stronger hands in your range when you're 3-bet. And you also need to consider 4-betting more often and calling more often, okay? And getting to the flop with more hands. Okay, final word on early position play. Keep it simple. This is not the greatest place to play poker from. Just fold most of the time. Wait. You can use your creativity when you're in strong position on the table and you're going to find life a lot easier. Tight really is right in early position. If you enjoyed the video, then please do the Facebook likes down below. My name is Ben Hales with Transform My Poker. Thanks for listening.